and your host of the I Don't Think We Talk Enough About podcast, where each week I'm joined by wonderful guests who bring their warmth, wisdom and wealth of experience to talk about the things I just don't think we talk enough about. And today we're diving into a topic that has sparked a frenzy in my DMs on Instagram, women's anger. And to share their absolutely brilliant wisdom and insight, I invited wonderful Jennifer Cox, psychotherapist, author and co-founder of the Women Are Mad movement. Her groundbreaking book, which actually was the Sunday Times Self-Help Book of the Year 2024, Women Are Angry, Why Your Rage is Hiding and How to Let It Out, has sparked such a powerful conversation about the cost of women's rage and the freedom, the beautiful freedom that comes from finally listening to it. Jennifer invites us to unlearn what we've been taught about being nice, to confront the physical and emotional toll of suppressed anger, and to reimagine what it looks like when women reclaim their full emotional range. Jennifer, welcome back to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me back, Helen.
So lovely, because you came on with Salima to talk about copying, didn't you, a few months ago? Which was such a great conversation.
It was such a great conversation, and actually was very useful because I think there were several kind of incidents after our convo that have happened, you know, in various different forms. And remembering back to all the things we were saying at the time, I think was so useful just to sort of keep it top of mind, you know, why it happens.
Yes, and actually, I do know what you're saying, and actually I agree with you. It was almost like an out loud journaling session.
It was, wasn't it?
You know, let's talk these thoughts and emotions and feelings, and it was great to have the three of us doing that. But I invited you back because I so wanted to talk to you about your book. I'll hold it up for the camera. It's beautiful. Women Are Angry. Mm-hmm. But actually, this is the hardback, and it was beautiful because today your paperback comes out.
It's such a great coincidence that we arranged to chat now, and here it is. I know.
It's beautiful. And so I've got both books on the table because obviously all my notes are in your hardback one. But what a book. What a book. And what a reaction you've had to it. What a reaction. I've got so many questions, and I know what you and I are like. We're just going to be...
Yeah, we will.
But we only have an hour.
Okay,
So
okay.
I was like, where do I start? And I thought, let's dive in. Let's just get straight in there. And yes, I've got lots of questions, but let's see where it goes. And I think the first question for me is, and I think this is where I really want to start, what is anger doing to women? And I know that's a huge question. Your book takes us from early, all the way through, early childhood, babes even, all the way through to elderly age. What is it doing to women?
It's tragic, really, what it's doing to all of us. And I think, you know, what I was seeing in patients in clinic was one thing, and I'll obviously come to that, but it was kind of once I began writing the book, once it sort of started pouring out of me, and I really began to kind of link the threads of what it was doing to women I knew and what in fact it has done to me, that it really began to feel so raw and kind of this moment. And then various things happened in the media that, you know, completely fed into this, which was the Roe v. Wade getting overturned in the States, which was Sarah Everard in this country. I think, you know, I was writing in the kind of backdrop of the whole Black Lives Matter thing kicking off, and it just felt like something was being stirred at a kind of civic level that was really playing into some of the ideas I was, you know, toying with. And I think, you know, what we can kind of boil it down to is that women don't have the tools to express our rage, our frustration, irritation, anything along that end of a feeling spectrum. So all the stuff that gets done to us on the daily from, as you say, when we're born is really receiving no outlet. And the only thing that can happen to it is that it stays within us. And our poor bodies have to somehow do something with it. And obviously over time, it gets harder and harder for our bodies to, you know, settle that score and be able to do any of that absorbing like they used to. And I think this is where we start to see disease progression begin. Yeah. And it's actually down to the levels of inflammation that come when you've got that much cortisol just impacting inside of your body systems and nothing is happening to it. It can only go one way, and it goes in and it attacks our organs and it attacks our cells. And this is where we see, you know, sadly, all the illnesses that women are far, far more prone to than men are.
Jen, I think that's a point really... Can I call you Jen?
Yes, please do.
I always call you Jennifer. It's like Jen just came.
Yeah, well, that's who I am.
Oh, Jen. I think it's really important that the people listening today really understand what cortisol is doing to their body. And the thing is, 25, 30 years ago, people didn't have this information, did they?
No.
We've got so much more awareness now through media, through experts talking about it, through research. Come back to that point again, because I really want to go over that so people really understand it. Anger is a stress response.
Yes.
So you've got you've done a lot of neuroscience training as well, haven't you? Which me too. It's so important to understand. And I find, don't you, that your clients want to know that information.
Yes.
What is happening to my body? The moment I understand my anger and what's happening, I can handle it better.
It's so true.
I can handle it better. But go back to that point about anger, cortisol, and as I just pulled in, it being a stress response. Yeah. What happens?
So this is what we kind of, and it's become very common knowledge now, I think, the fight, flight, freeze idea. And obviously at the root of that is adrenaline and cortisol. And what happens when something happens to us or in our environment that elicits a need for response in us, so danger, effectively, or something that needs to change, like this is going to do you harm, or this is doing you harm. And we need to either take ourselves out of that situation or kind of roll up our sleeves and stay in and sort it. And the thing is, what we associate with kind of more masculine behaviors is an aggressive, sometimes even violent response to those sort of hijack, ambush moments that you can't plan for and, you know, that just sort of take you by surprise. We kind of more see men handle those better than we typically see women. Women don't know what to say, try to calm it down, or want to run. And the thing is, it's only because we've never been taught how to stay in and what we should do when we stay in. So those hormones in us kind of send our brain into a total spin. We don't know what to do with it. And yes, it's not great that some men stay and fight. That's not an answer either. But equally, they haven't been taught any more kind of diplomatic skills of handling it. So what happens in us is that these chemicals arrive and they just sort of sit there because we're not discharging them in any way. We're not kind of causing the energy to transfer and convert into something else. It just kind of hijacks us and completely arrests us. Yeah, exactly. And we all know what that feels like. And the impulse, I think, is to get away. You know, these feelings are horrible. So if we exit the situation, then maybe we'll exit the feeling. The trouble is that's not how it works. The feeling stays. We're often jangled for the rest of the day. You know, if we've had a nasty incident with someone on the bus or our boss has kind of called us in and given us some harsh words. Whatever it is, we don't shake it off, because mostly we don't sort it out in the then and there. Mostly we're just left with it. And so what is then happening in our bodies is that these hormones are kind of sticking around, and off the back of them, and it's over time, like acute stress, sort of, which is happening, very quickly and sort of, one moment in time, isn't going to do us any harm. That's okay. We don't need to worry about one thing sending us over the edge. But it's the aggregate that does us harm and that our bodies start to suffer through. So that build, basically, again and again, of the cortisol not going anywhere. And how I lay that out, obviously, in the book, in terms of the aggregate experiences, are all the micro moments in a woman's day that are making her stressed, furious, frustrated, irritated, like all these kind of negative, as I said, at this end of a feeling spectrum, over time just gathering up. And we don't notice them because they're so normal. No, I know. The school calls you and says, your child's got nits. You need to come and get them. And maybe you're in the middle of a meeting. Doesn't matter. You've got to come and get them. You know that you don't have an excuse. You realise that morning, oh God, I haven't got anything in for the lunchbox. Oh no, I haven't signed this form. I mean, that's obviously just on the kind of mothering level.
I was just going to say, and that's just one example.
That's just one example.
And there's so many other examples, aren't there? Because we're not just talking about the mother mental load here, are we? We're talking about, and the way that so two things I want to say actually there is, one, when you talk, I love the way you brought in about men and anger. Yes, they haven't been taught how to process anger in a healthy way always. But I was listening to Dr. Frank Anderson this morning. Do you know him? He's a psychiatrist and psychotherapist in the States.
Okay, no.
And he was talking about, we haven't been taught enough how to release anger. Ooh. But at least and trauma, and whatever it is, that releasing phase, at least with men, and I'm not saying that their anger is dealt with correctly, but they're getting that release, and then they've expelled the cortisol and the adrenaline. It's not sitting in their bodies causing the inflammation that we're getting, that we're seeing in women, that long term is leading to what we're going to carry on and talk about. There was another point I said, wasn't there? There's 2 points. What was the other one I wanted to say? Oh, that's right. So, but you bring in so beautifully the way anger has been stored in our system since we were baby girls.
Yeah.
And you say that, your chapter, is it baby girl? Girl baby.
Yeah.
And all the way through sort of girl tween, girl teen, girl, just the way you bring in your absolutely brilliant case studies.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Dotted all the way through the book. That actually, when I was reading them, I could, I'm a therapist too. I sit with all of those similar stories. The anguish, the deep holding of anger that they don't realise is anger, brings me to the feelings wheel. If people would just understand that, I'll link it actually in show notes, but I think it's Gloria Wilcox came up with the feelings wheel, the emotional wheel. And behind anger, there's so many other feelings and emotions, aren't there? Resentment, let down, not supported. And you were just talking about the mother load, and it's like, God, you can feel it all. Yeah. But talk to me more about the trajectory from where you are in your book, the starting point through.
So where I decided to begin it was, as you say, in girl baby phase, because this is clearly when you start to sort of dissect it where it all kicks off. And in fact, what I argue is that I think it starts even before a girl baby is born.
Of course it does.
Because it's all those projections and the expectations. Mostly now people find out, obviously, what they're going to have before their baby is born. And so then you're getting everybody's ideas about what a girl baby is, who she's going to be for you, what she's going to do for you, frankly, is the biggest thing, I think. Oh, she'll be your best friend. She'll be able to go shopping with you. She'll look after you when you're old. So this is really what I wanted to kind of underscore was, yes, we can come into it kind of later on and say, oh, these sexist, positions that people take up in society and these jobs we're not getting. And as you say, like the maternal mental load and all of that. Where does it start? It starts all the way back there. And it starts with, all the pink stuff, because like I say, there's nothing wrong with pink. I mean, as you can see, I love pink. But it's what pink represents. It's the fact that when you go into a department store looking for a toy for a baby, you get the girl section, which is pink, but it's all very specific items. So little prams, little dollies, even like girl Lego is pink. So it's like, it doesn't matter if boys' stuff was pink too, and we could have that sort of flexibility of ideas around, frankly, something as basic as a colour, then it would just allow a little bit more freedom in terms of what a baby is having sent to them by way of messages, by way of what you're meant to like. It's the code, isn't it? And then when you chase that through to being at school, what do girls like? Oh, girls like English. Girls like art, the sort of soft subjects. And these are the boy subjects. And even if you get girls that are good at that sort of thing, I think again, it's this messaging. It's come through from when you're tiny. You didn't play probably with all the Lego Technic stuff. So you sort of have this idea of yourself as being a bit in the wrong place. Yeah. And maybe that's different if you've, I don't know, gone to a girls' school or something where there's more sort of, flexibility of mind around, well, it has to be, doesn't there, around like what things people are allowed to do. But I'd say in the kind of mainstream state sector, it's still very much, even though I don't know what it's like but when I remember back to kind of top math sets, it didn't matter that it was probably mostly girls. It's still a boys' subject. We can't seem to shake it. And then when you kind of go through to obviously like young women going out into the workplace for the first time and feeling as if, and I think I describe it as, your stock is high, you feel, because you've got attractiveness under your belt. You've got your probably university degree under your belt, and you feel like the world is at your feet. And then what's really tragic is actually what starts to happen is you look around and you realize, oh, hang on, I'm still not getting the promotions, and I'm still not really being taken seriously, and people are talking over me in meetings, and people aren't taking my ideas forward, or they're saying that a man came up with that idea that I know was definitely mine. And it's all, I'd say, much more subtle than it was. It's not obviously like the Mad Men days of the typing pool, but I think that wiring is still in there. And you only have to look at the stats on, women who have top jobs and certain sectors that are still very male dominant to realize it hasn't changed that much.
No, I know. I really hear you. And there's a word you used in there when you first started talking about that really landed for me. You said, why don't we give children the freedom to choose? And I thought that was so powerful. And as you said freedom, I could really feel that nervous system. Where's the freedom that comes? But also attaching that to anger. You know, having the freedom to feel angry.
Yeah.
The freedom to expel it. The freedom to say this doesn't feel right or this needs to be looked at. You come up with a brilliant phrase in your book around stay. I can't think how you worded it. Oh, obviously stay and repair. But about stay in the room with your anger. Talk to me about that, because that really gives the people listening today something. You know, stay in the room with your anger.
So it's so funny because as you were saying about the freedom thought, I was imagining like little boys and little girls and what we generally sort of picture them in. And it's often for boys comfortable clothes that they can kind of rough and tumble in, isn't it? And they can climb to the highest bit of the climbing frame and they get all of the playground to play football in. And the little girls are not free. They're very constrained. They're often in much more uncomfortable clothing. Even these days, it's just like separates. You know, it's very uncomfortable.
Skirts that fly up when you're on a climbing frame or get stuck. And exactly.
Yes. And I remember when, sorry, not to go too off topic, but I remember when I was at primary school and at break times the girls had to start wearing shorts under their skirts because it was seen to be very inappropriate that if we went upside down our knickers would show.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's really pervy. Like, who thought that was a problem?
So little.
We were tiny,
I know.
Oh, anyway.
And those messages they lodge, don't they?
Yeah,
they're there.
The shame.
They're there.
Cover up.
Yes, from a young age I have to cover up, or there's danger.
Yes,
from
exactly.
a young age. So from a very, very young age.
So from I'm not free.
I'm not free.
Yeah.
And then, I'm loving this conversation because sitting with it and people understanding that when we've got that cortisol sitting in our body with no release for years in our nervous system, the damage it's doing, the inflammation you talk about.
Yeah.
I know that part of the book I read, and I know you referenced him, Gabor Mate, but you talked about his book. Oh, the one about no in the title. What's the one with no in the title? I can't remember. But the book that really stands out to me of his is The Myth of Being Normal, or The Myth of Normal, and the studies he brings in around women's anger and suppression of anger with cancer.
Does he?
And I can't remember the. Oh, hang on. I think I took a screenshot of it because I want to talk to you about it today. There was there's a group of nurses inside in a cancer clinic in Cleveland, and they could predict whether someone's result was going to be positive or negative, a woman's result on cancer, I think pretty certain it was cancer. I'll reference the book, on whether they were too nice or not nice. And the neuroscientist behind it was saying, no, not at all. And then they looked at all the stats, and more often than not, they were correct. So the women who were incredibly lovely and nice were the ones that were positive. So all of those years, and I'm seeing it in my clients, all of those years of not having a voice, not realising that inflammation is actually really damaging their bodies.
And imagine, like, you're the kid that got told, no, you have to put your shorts on before you go outside and play in the climbing frame.
I know, we're back to this because I love it. I know.
Yes.
It's really, I know.
It's so significant, isn't it? Because the questions you would have then as that little girl, why? Because little Jimmy doesn't have to do that. Don't ask me, just do it.
Yes.
But why? Squash. I'm not answering you. That's a stupid question. Shut up.
Yes.
So from then it's like, okay. And because we're nice and we're told be polite to older people, to your teachers, we wouldn't dare say, no, I'm not going to do that. It's stupid. So like you're saying, this is when all of this suppression, all of this like squashing down of our voice, of our questions, of our spirit really starts to happen. And why? So back to this point that you're asking then about the staying in the room.
Oh yes, I did.
I did. I'm trying to keep a track on our minds. Back to that. How would we ever think we had the right to stay in a room or come back into a room and ask the questions that we'd sort of left the room with, or been so overwhelmed that we felt we needed to leave the room because of, where would that strength, that confidence come from in us if we've had it squashed out of us, battered out of us from so young?
And as you were saying, you're absolutely right. Where would we have the courage to, or even the skill set to?
The language.
I know, but I'm now thinking about those girls at school that would have said no and would have said why.
Ooh.
And actually, I was a good girl. And I'm thinking now that I would look at those girls and think, oh, they were really naughty.
Naughty.
But
terrible.
actually, do you know what? They weren't. And I'm like, I'm here for those girls that say no and question.
Yes.
But we were all told to, look at my body language, like
boxes, squashed in.
So, you're a psychotherapist dealing with your clients. What are you seeing? Because people don't come to therapy, as you say so beautifully in your book, they don't come to therapy saying, I'm angry.
No.
Some do.
A very few.
Some do. But what are you seeing that this not talking about their anger, how's it manifesting as they walk through into a therapy room?
Oh, I mean, so many ways.
I know. And you've got so many case studies. And you are, because of the psychoanalytical aspect of our work, we get all of them, you pin it right back.
Yeah, you have to, don't you?
Anyway, but how it manifests in terms of their wellness, their mental health.
So I'd say it's as much physical as it is mental. So very often you can see it in people's bodies. There's a stiffness, there's a sort of held, and they might be being called uptight out in the world, which is just so awful. And then you often get the sort of more anxious presentation, sort of twitchy and fidgety and, feeling like very frightened to put a foot wrong, definitely wanting to do therapy right and well and be a good patient. Oh, God, it's awful. Always apologising. This is, I would say, standard. And I'm sure you found this. Women just have to say sorry for essentially taking up any room, saying anything about themselves. So the thought that they would come and languish in a space that is just theirs for 50 whole minutes and just think about themselves, that's already a task.
But isn't it wonderful when you see that change in them, where they can then come and say, I was so looking forward to get this off my chest, or I got this off my chest in the week too.
Oh, God,
and it's
beautiful.
Like, actually, but in terms of the, and you're so right about the body language, but in terms of the manifestations on wellness from inflammation, we're looking at so many ways of that presenting, aren't we, in poor health.
Massive.
And obviously you list it in the book, and it actually has a detrimental effect, suppressed anger, not just on our mental health, but on our physical health.
Yes.
And I wish more people understood that.
I wish they did too. I mean, I read the other day, Alzheimer's is twice as likely to affect women. And that's not even in the book. I think that's probably quite a recent finding. And then
I read that recently. I wonder if it has come through. I can't think where I read it. But yes, I think it's...
I mean, like, that is so terrifying, isn't it?
It's terrifying, and I know that we're therapists and we've done an awful lot of our own work, but I actually, when I read it, found it so empowering. Like, this is now, it has to change.
Oh, right.
We have to do something about this now.
I suppose you're right, because it is almost like, see,
here
it is.
This is the evidence. I know, this is the evidence.
Yeah.
So I felt quite empowered, like, now we have to do something. Now we have to use our voice.
It's funny, because when I was researching it, in terms of the science section of the idea, I was just stunned by the volume, actually, of studies that have happened, not necessarily kind of women specific, but certainly linking health outcome to repression of feelings and thinking, God, there's a couple of people that we can name, the Gabor Mates and the body keeps the score.
Bessel van der Kolk.
Yes, thank you.
He is a guru.
The guru. There's the gurus.
Yes.
But in terms of lay messaging and like everyone knowing this stuff, not everyone knows. I mean, I think we know it in our bodies, and that's why, and actually kind of old wives' tales tell us this, but I do think this is why the book struck a chord, is because everyone went, oh yeah. It's not like I was saying anything new. It's just kind of, oh yeah, this is what I know. This is what I know to be true. And,
yes,
you know, it's just kind of, again, as you say, showing people more clearly the evidence. It's not just in your head. Like, this stuff that you've been carrying around with you forever is, yeah, kind of killing you actually. And when you, as you say, like when you give people that kind of power, something can change. They can do things differently.
And when you said that about, yes, this fits, this is, I am right, this is killing us, I am right. You've got a whole chapter on being gaslit, haven't you?
Yes.
How did that come about? How did it feel to write that? Because it's a really powerful chapter.
I mean, yeah, I think that is one of the ones that felt so personal for me, because, and I think most women reading it will utterly just go, oh yeah. Like,
she's on the money.
Yes, because this is the lie. This is the lie that we're all told. You can have it all, ladies. Oh, we'll just make this really difficult. And we'll just ask you to do this as well. And if you're so capable, have you thought about doing this? And maybe you need to buy this because everyone else has bought it. And if you want to, you know, look as good as them, then you need to.
Oh, that's a whole industry, isn't it?
Yes.
And actually, I was laughing with a friend the other day about about my Instagram adverts that come up. So they've got me. They know exactly what my insecurities are. But they get you, don't they?
They do.
And then
They're so
I
clever.
find myself at, say, 7 o'clock. I'm not very good in the morning. I do like to have a cup of tea and look at my phone. They're selling me stuff at 7 o'clock in the morning.
You're so vulnerable at that point.
Thinking, I don't feel great, and now I'm being,
I better buy it.
They're feeding into these insecurities, and I have to catch myself not to be bought into it. Put your phone down, walk away, do something else. You're fine.
Yeah.
If you're a therapist or health professional in private practice, you know just how much time admin work can take you away from client care. That's where Simple Practice comes in. It's an all-in-one electronic health record designed to help us practitioners thrive, offering everything from scheduling and documentation to billing and telehealth, all in one place, so you can spend less time managing your practice and more time focusing on what really matters. For new customers, you can get an exclusive promotion by going to simplepractice.com/Helen Marie and get a 7-day free trial, then 70% off for 4 months. Please see show notes for more details. So, what can we do about it? That's a huge question.
Yeah, it's huge. I think talking about it is the first step. I think that's why, as we said, it's sort of hit a nerve in a way that I couldn't have predicted, but I kind of also thought it should. Like, I knew that this needed to get out as a message. I knew I couldn't keep it in just me anymore, or just in my clinic anymore. And my first thought was share it with other therapists. Let's just get this happening at a sort of at least level of psychology and do knowledge sharing that way. But it just sort of ran away with itself. And I think because people could feel the need. And so this is where I think the most effective and efficient thing we can do is just get it into our daily conversations, like with our friends, with our colleagues, with our family members.
Yeah.
You know, oh, have you thought about da 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 da? Oh, I'm just wondering. You know, it doesn't need to be that we all go off in these massive rants and blow up our lives.
No.
It's just about small tweaks that can make a really big difference. And I also think, you know, if people have young kids, it's really starting to scrutinize yourself when you're asking certain things of son versus daughter. Why did I do that? Funny how the daughter's always there, ready, willing to help. Like, you know, as girls, I think we have to accept that this messaging, this wiring starts from, as we said, probably even before we're born. So we need to take active steps to, you know, make sure that we're redressing that. We can't just have this as a sort of theoretical, oh yes, wouldn't it be nice if there was equality? We have to start, you know, in the home, making sure that we are expecting boys to step up in the same way.
Yeah.
And we are expecting them to show emotion in the same way as we expect girls to. Because I think this is the other massive thing I would be saying is we need to stop treating boys and girls so differently at home, at school, and, you know, as we grow up, like in relationships, we can already start talking to our male partners differently about what we expect from them emotionally. Like, why do they never sort of share, or why do they struggle to share what their day was like? Can't we just have more concerted efforts there from both sides to kind of talk about not just what happened factually, but what happened internally and emotionally? And why can't little boys achieve what little girls can early on by way of their emotional, you know, repertoire? Like, why can't they talk about how something hurt their feelings, or something, or they're shy, or they were made to feel silly? Like, why can't they talk about that stuff? And I think humiliation among children is really a problem anyway, in terms of, like, if you remember when you were a kid, it was difficult to sort of stand up for yourself and say, I didn't like it when you did this. In general, kids don't have that sort of capacity. So we need to be able to help them. And I think we need to be really looking to help boys and girls in ways that act against what society is telling them they're allowed to do or not allowed to do.
I love that. I really love that. And I tell you why, because and I'm really pleased you mentioned it in the book, because this isn't a man-bashing book. It isn't. And I'm sure that lots of people will think it is, because it's women are angry. It's all about women's anger.
Yeah.
It's not. It's much more societal than that. There's a part you say that sometimes it feels like you're sticking a plaster over a hemorrhage. And actually, this takes both sides, doesn't it? And and when you said about treating boys and girls the same when they're small, no wonder we have so many emotionally unavailable male adults.
Man babies.
But because they haven't been taught that it's safe to talk about their feelings. I've got sons and daughters. You know, I catch myself the way I am with them, and there is a difference between them. I can sense it. Yeah. Not from parenting, from society.
That's the trouble. That is going to pile in anyway.
That's going to so we have to counteract that, don't we? And
that's a good word.
I remember thinking, right, because I trained a little bit later with my children, and I remember the girls had always been so chatty with me, but my son, chatty, but not about how he felt. I thought, I'm just going to try and change this. And I said, like, we're going to sit down and, you know, how are you? And it's like,
what's this?
And then literally squirming, like, and I was like, no, we literally stayed with the uncomfortable. I was like, no, and we talked and then suddenly we found an hour had gone, and we'd had this really great deep chat. And from that moment, and he was only sort of early teens, it would be like, can we have another one of those chats? Can we have another one of those chats? Can we go for a walk and have one of those chats?
Yes.
And now he is. This isn't promoting my son or big. I'm just talking about bringing up boys the same way. He now talks really openly about mental health. So you can see that it happens from when they're young and the nurturing.
But also great that you can see with that you can kind of come in at any point. They don't have to be 4 years old.
No, this was early teens.
There
you
you
can
go.
do it.
Yeah.
And I guess it might feel uncomfortable and much easier to not have the conversation.
Yeah.
But actually, if they can, like in the therapy room, if they feel safe enough to do it with you, they can go into the world feeling safer.
Oh, it's massive, you know. And I think also that idea of staying in the room with the uncomfortable, if you can model that to them, like, oh, yes, this is weird. I'm finding this weird too.
Not easy.
It's not easy for anyone, but it's important. I think that's so key, isn't it? Because what we then avoid are massive, massive things going wrong potentially later.
Yes.
When it is harder to come in and sort of, you know, correct. So I think, really, in terms of what we can do to change, it is about having those squirmy conversations. And the earlier you start, the better, because they are less squirmy at that stage, you know.
And they do become less squirmy. They really do. They actually become a deeper chat.
And it becomes level, very normal.
Really natural, really normal. And actually, as you were talking there, I was thinking, no parent wants their child to feel uncomfortable. So we do anything not to. So it's sometimes we don't sit with the uncomfortable because we don't want them to feel uncomfortable.
That's so true.
But just having that ability to sit with the uncomfortable for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
You know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
I agree. I think it's like literally a minute a time. It's a bit like how we've all like forgotten how to read a book. And actually, if you just do a page more each time, or get off the bus, or stop earlier, whatever it is, it's just sort of understanding that we find certain things difficult, and it's going to be far too much like, you know, getting into a cold shower to do it all immersive.
Yeah, exactly.
0 to 60.
No, you're right.
But little tweaks.
And they make a massive difference.
Huge.
And I suppose it's then about coming back to the plaster over the hemorrhage. But if we're all doing our part, this isn't going to change tonight or tomorrow. It's about a movement, isn't it? Women Are Mad movement. Anyway, Jen, on to the next part of the podcast. Mm-hmm. My beautiful Instagram community is so engaged, flooded with DMs around anger. I thought this one was interesting, and this threads through a lot of them. My husband lied to me for 7 years. I don't know what about. The person hasn't disclosed that. I never knew the kind of anger I felt and still feel now. It's the not knowing what has happened in my own marriage. Oh. I know. And obviously we can sit and talk about that, but just from what you were saying in the bit before this was that use of voice, or just, I feel sad for everyone that wrote in.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I feel so sad for this person.
It reminds me of the sort of Victorian style era that carried on for way too long, where men, if it wasn't convenient for them, would accuse their wives of being mad, and then they'd be locked up in an asylum.
Don't get me started. Hysteria, that all of Freud and Brewer's work, isn't it? Yes,
exactly. And this has sort of, I guess, modern notes of that to it. It's gaslight. I'm turning down the lights. I'm saying, there's nothing. It's perfectly bright in here. It must be you. It must be your brain. It must be your eyes. I mean, lying within a relationship, within an intimate relationship, it's sort of, I kind of don't know where your brain begins to be able to make sense of that.
No, I know.
And I can see, like, the anger, the levels of anger. She's right. Like, what are the words for that?
And on that, I would say her anger is so valid. You are allowed to feel angry. You know?
Yeah, because I suppose if you've been robbed of your own sense for so long and been presumably made to feel like you're wrong, then you're going to get further and further away from your own sort of conviction about what is right and wrong. And our anger is obviously fundamental to showing us something needs to change, something is wrong here. So it feels kind of casebook what we're talking about, that of course she would feel the very angriest.
Yeah. And sitting and naming that, Jen, just sitting with that.
That's going to be powerful for her.
I know. I am angry.
Yeah. And I think having somebody else, because he obviously, I think when it's been done to you by one specific other person, you almost need another specific person to sit. And this is where obviously a therapist would be ideal, but if not, a good friend who utterly knows the whole story and isn't ever going to try and make you see it from another side, because that's obviously what we spend far too long doing as women as well. She needs to be with her feeling, as you say, totally validated, pure, like just allowed its full force.
I know. What advice would you give for her to move forward?
Duff him up. I'll come and do it.
But it's that validation, isn't that support, isn't it? You're right, it's that finding support. So
yeah. And people, I guess other people who go, oh my God, this is horrendous. How can this have happened to you? Be as appalled on your behalf.
Yes.
That's what I think she needs. It's that idea of community again. It's so funny, isn't it, that when women are hurt by men, they run to other women. They don't run to men for protection. No. They know who's got their back. And this is what really upsets me about bitchiness and sort of backstabbing among women, because I think, it's such a waste. We can give each other so much, and we should be.
That's a question, actually. Yeah, I think I really felt for her, and I think just that validating and naming it, and having every right to feel angry and find outlets to express that anger healthily.
Yeah.
You know, run.
Yeah, run.
Use that physical, you've got the anger, you need to release it in no one's going to say, why don't you just journal your thoughts? Or why don't you just meditate for it?
Way too big.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
think actually that instinct of like duff him up, I would get to a gym and kickboxing.
Exactly.
Big old,
kickboxing.
What's that thing called? Punch bag. Do all that.
We talked about earlier, releasing the stress response, releasing the anger.
Yeah.
Thumping pillows can be really helpful. Screaming into a pillow. Don't let that adrenaline and cortisol sit in your body and inflame you.
Yes, get it out. Get it out.
Self-worth. Focus on you now.
And I guess, all those years, isn't it, of the lying where your own self-worth would be so eroded and you wouldn't even know it. You'd be feeling, what's going on? But you wouldn't. And the signals might be trying to tell you something. But I think this is the problem with the gaslight and the fact that we're all so gaslit just as baseline, is we find it very difficult to kind of find our own baseline on, hang on, this feels wrong. We don't listen to it because we don't trust it, because we've been told, no, you're silly, you don't know anything.
I know. I think that's right. Beautiful validation. And I just want to say to the person that wrote in, thank you for writing in. And I'm just so sorry that that happened to you. I really am. But thank you. Interesting. I was just going to try and find it out, actually, because this links into what you were saying. And another question that came in, not really a question, but more an observation. Lots of people sharing their stories. I'm so angry that women, instead of helping other women, attack them. And actually, I know I'm on your podcast soon. And actually, that was one of my things that I wanted to bring in, was about, that's my main one, actually, in light of something that happened quite publicly with a big writer about women not supporting other women.
Oh, yeah. Please come and chat all about that.
I just think there seems to be this umbrella, and I know you mention it in the book, and I know it makes you angry too because of labels. I get that. But I think there's something around lots of people promoting this, oh yes, women support other women. But there's an awful lot of women not supporting other women.
I'd say more who
aren't. Yes, far more than you ever see in the male world.
Yeah. Oh,
there's far
totally.
more supporting other men.
Well, this is actually
really. It doesn't even really seem to come up as an issue.
It doesn't come up.
It's not even a supporting. It's not actually an issue.
I think it's the opposite, because I think men have the old boys clubs.
Yes.
Like Salima actually said the other day, isn't it amazing we are making our own old boys club? Like basically gathering up amazing women who we fully trust and fully go, they have our backs and we have theirs.
I felt that, yes.
You know? And it's that simple and it's that straightforward. And they've always had it. The men have always had it, because I think, you know, they've never had that sort of scrapping between themselves for tiny bits of, you know, glory.
No. And obviously men can be competitive, but not in a damaging way.
No.
That women, I'm really pleased that a couple of people wrote that in, because I get angry about that too, because I think there's and you say about a boys' club, but I'm also conscious that, and yours isn't, and it's what I love, you're so open. It's like everyone is welcome. Come and be part of this that we're creating, our community. It's abundant.
Yes,
you know,
it is abundant.
It's not got limits. It's not a clique.
No. God forbid.
No, but women can be really guilty of cliques. And, you know, I was really badly, I find it even hard to say, really badly bullied at school. And I think back to that, there was not women supported. There was no way I was being supported as a teenager. I was being pushed out, you know.
Scapegoated.
Oh, just pushed out, you know.
Because it is like that horrible, horrible thing, isn't it? Of focus it, I'm feeling awful. Let's project that onto her. And also, if anyone else is going to be awful, there she is. That's the one we do this to.
Oh, absolutely.
And once it begins, it's an absolute, it gathers and gathers, doesn't it? Because it's just, that's the vulnerable person. Hooray! We can all throw the stones.
And that vulnerable person is a person. You know, they are a person. And I doesn't matter, you know, forget the teenage stuff. It doesn't matter even, you know, when we see successful women now, particularly since social media has, you know, people have become incredibly successful. Not everyone, as you said, most likely more people don't support that or celebrate that.
No.
But I read an article by Polly Vernon the other day, and she said, if they can do it, if I can do it, you can too. It's not, we're not saying you can't do this.
Yes.
You know, but people jump on the...
It's like there's only 3 spots or something.
Yeah, I mean, crazy.
But I think that's what we've been told. If the world is a man's world and essentially theirs for the picking, and they can go out and choose to do whatever they like and get as high in it as they like, nothing stopping them, then it kind of stands to reason that essentially that message is, well, we've got this, ladies, so I don't know, amuse yourselves. And it does feel like it's scarce, like whatever's left is scarce. And
that's a really good point.
Scrabbling for it.
But it's not scarce.
It's not, and we can make it bigger.
There aren't any limits. There aren't any limits. Great. I'm glad you feel the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
My mother's rage terrified me in childhood. So I struggle now as an adult to get angry, as I don't want anyone to feel that. My initial thoughts were, you see anger as dangerous.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, I had a couple of thoughts, but I'd love to know your thoughts.
I think you're right. Danger and threat. And there's no possible way in her mind of anger being anything that could be positive fuel for herself.
No.
It's just toxic.
It's toxic, as opposed to it being part of the normal, as you talk about in the book, the normal emotional range.
Yes.
And actually what we've talked about today, if she doesn't get in touch with her anger story, she's causing herself immense damage,
it's
mentally and
horrifying,
physically.
because then not only does her mum's anger come and sit in her body and do that harm to her, but also her own.
I know.
Which feels like a horrible double whammy. I mean, I think if she could start separating what happened to her, like at the hands of her mum, from these feelings that are hers, that are personal to her, and that are telling her, again, something needs to change, that's all it is, then she can start to see her anger as being quite distinct, quite separate, and actually about something else. So, you know, one of her kids has annoyed her. Well, it doesn't mean that she's going to have to, it's not like the wind is going to come whistling straight down the tunnel and land on that kid. She's the brave one because she can put the brakes on and say it ends with me, but I'm not going to pretend that I'm not cross about this. Very different.
Love that separation. I love that. When I was, obviously, because I'd had time to reflect on the questions, obviously I'm just throwing them at you today, Jen. But I was thinking also, and another thing we work with in therapy, isn't it, was I wonder whether she could try and understand her mother's anger. That might be a difficult piece of work, but as another woman to another woman, I wonder what her mother's story was. Not to excuse it.
No, not to excuse it,
but just
but
as
it's
understand, no blame, just understanding.
Because then it stops being so personal
Yes,
as well,
yes,
doesn't
yes,
it?
yes.
It's about her mum. It was her mum's thing. Highly unfortunate that she wasn't able to put the brakes on and protect her daughter.
I know.
But if the daughter can start to look at it differently, that is a freeing experience.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. Okay. What if you never get angry? I know. I know. I know. But brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant, because how many women are there sat there saying, I never get angry?
I mean, I would say the majority, actually, because I guess the ones that I've worked with very quickly learn how to say it. But, you know, I'm not getting to that many of them when you think about it in the scheme of things.
No, of course.
And I would say the biggest resistance I had to the book, the idea of the book initially was women going, but I'm not angry. And in fact, when we first started the podcast, it was very much, what? But I'm not an angry person. They didn't want it because it feels dangerous and it feels ugly.
Gosh, I didn't realise that you'd had that.
Yeah. And that, I think, was the kind of first version of women trying to stop me that I came up against.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
That was the flavour of it.
I'm fine.
Fine. What's wrong with you? You're the problem if you think this is an issue.
Yeah, because they've never actually sat. And I mean, the studies, you list them all in the back of your book.
That's the thing.
Gabor Mate's work.
Yeah.
You know, it's there.
Yeah.
Bessel van der Kolk's what we've already mentioned. You know, Stephen Porges, it's all there. The evidence is there.
Yeah.
Jen, this has been brilliant.
Oh,
this has been
thank
brilliant.
you so much. I've loved
Oh,
it.
I honestly can't wait to get the episode out there. I can't wait for your book to keep working its magic in the world. And for women to realise it's safe to be angry too.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you.
They need to.
They need to. They literally need to.
They need to. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much if you could follow the show, leave a quick rating, and maybe even a review to let others know what you think and whether they may enjoy the conversation too. Your support genuinely means so much. Thank you. Enjoy your day.